We're here to empower high-income earners to gain back control of your time through financial independence and stop trading your time for money and start letting your money work harder for you.
And hey, if you want to meet other high-income earners on their FIRE journey, join our High Income Earners FIRE Facebook group. Every month, we'll have guest speakers and we'll share about what our team is currently working on and allow you to share what you are working on with other high-income earners.
Welcome back to the High Income Earners FIRE podcast. Today, I'm with my co-host, Eileen Prag, and I'm Cody Ye. And today, before we get into our interview with Darren Voros, which is an 8-figure real estate investor, and also he has his own real estate educational platform, and he has part of different mastermind that he created. Great guy. He shares a lot about how high income earners and how he has really shift from just equity rich to shift that to a more cash rich environment so that he can support his day-to-day business, but not live like a equity rich and cash poor, just like most of the real estate investor. So if you're someone in that shoes, if you're someone looking for, you want to be a passive investor, you want to just, kind of give money to someone you trust, this episode is definitely for you. So without further ado, we're going to bring Darren Voros on. Welcome, Darren. So today I'm with my co-host, Eileen Prag. And again, I'm Cody Ye. And today we have Darren here. Welcome, Darren.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me here. It's great to see you both.
Same here, Darren. I know we're super excited about this because, you have a lot of experience in all different areas. And so thank you so much for coming on and sharing a little bit about yourself and what you're doing and how you've been able to reach your financial independence with us today.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can start off by sharing a little bit about into you, what you're doing, your focus, and we can jump right in.
Yeah, well, I think the last couple of years have been pretty big for me in terms of business. I've really been focused more so on business over the last couple of years. I think for many years, I've been a real estate investor, but I don't think I was really looking at all the realms of possibility when it comes to real estate investing and everything else that can kind of follow that. But, as I got introduced to more people in the industry, I saw what they were doing around education and conferences and just multiple income streams. And that was sort of what my focus shifted to a couple of years ago. And I don't know how many of your other listeners are sort of been posed with this scenario in the past, but I was a real estate investor who had a multi-million-dollar portfolio, but I was struggling to make my monthly payments because I got no cash coming in, right? So my focus over the last couple of years has been shifting towards, okay, I've got enough net worth now. Now, how do I really focus on cash? Because cash is king. I don't care what anyone says. Cash is what we live on, and we spend our dollars and doing the things that we want to do. So that's really been my focus over the last couple of years, and expanding my knowledge and my business, but also just expanding the things that I'm doing and giving me more opportunities to increase my net worth, but also increase my day-to-day living.
Equity rich and cash flow poor, they say.
Right? Yeah, for sure. It can be a real problem, I think, for a lot of people if they're not careful with it.
It's very interesting because this is actually the topic I'm making for my next YouTube video. A lot of people, when real estate goes up, they only feel a subtle happiness because as it goes up, a lot of people don't really sell those real estate, right? So they don't really feel a difference. And a lot of people have equity in, no cash flow to spend it unless they sell it, right? But most people don't want to pay tax. They want to use a tax benefit. List goes on and on and on. And everyone just live like dirt poor, but all millionaires.
Yeah,
so
on paper.
Yeah, on paper. So like the other day, actually doing a different mastermind, I actually just got to know you that before you started real estate, you were actually a performer, right? So how was that transition from a performer to a real estate investor? Or how's that come about for you?
Yeah, it's funny because I think when I was in that world, people thought it was so crazy when I started getting into real estate investing. And now so many people have no idea that was part of my previous life. And they're like, wait a minute, you used to sing and dance and act for a living. And yeah, I mean, it was two very different things. And not a lot of people kind of do both, right? Or have done both. So for me as a performer, I was always interested in finding other ways to make a little bit more income or set up my future. And I'm so glad that I did. And it's an awful thing that happened during the last couple of years. So many of my friends just got their industry wiped out from underneath them. And so having this thing that I transitioned to years ago, I'm so grateful for that. But I think that it kind of translates to anything. My dad was 45 years old and had a steady job for 20 something years. and assumed that going to be there forever. And one day went into work and the doors were closed and the company went into foreclosure and he had no job. And trying to enter the job market at 50 was very difficult for him. So I saw him go through that. And I think that kind of like upbringing that I had to think like, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. And so as a performer, I was always kind of looking at other ways that I could increase my net worth and set myself up for future, that I wouldn't be relying on, singing and dancing until I was 80 years old, because there's no longevity in that, right? So that's why I looked at those different things that I would have the ability to do. And then all of a sudden there was just a day when real estate became more exciting than performing. And then I just transitioned into that full time.
So what are the ways that you're looking at now to build up your streams of income? Because you looked at your portfolio and you had a lot of equity, built up a big net worth, but you didn't really have the cash flow coming out. So how did you transition to it? And what are some of the things that you're focusing on now to build up the cash flow?
Well, I think for me, it was I would get those lump sum cash distributions on a refinance or something like that. But, those are few and far between. And there's also an adverse effect to that. You refinance your property and yes, you get $100,000, but guess what? Your payments have gone up significantly. And so you got to have enough cash flow to cover that. So those were nice every once in a while to get a $50,000 or $100,000 check. That's pretty cool. But you can't really rely on that because real estate values fluctuate all the time. And we're seeing that right now. Like if somebody's in a position where they were trying to refinance a property and pull out equity to live on, like they might be in a bit of a difficult situation right now. So for me, it was like a focus on, okay, how do I generate more cash? And that was just around creating an education platform, doing coaching, creating a mastermind. I mean, I even got into stock options by somebody else. This interview forced me into that. And, so that's been, that's been a huge learning experience for me. But I always wanted to diversify because even as an early investor, that was one of the things that I heard was like, you want to make sure that you're diversified. So it's not just all of your eggs in the one sort of basket of real estate investing, because if that thing changes, that could significantly impact how you're able to survive. And so for me, that's been my focus, is just building things that generate monthly cash, short-term rentals. All of those other things are great for being able to do that. And that's why I've shifted my focus there now.
And since you mentioned that someone, I will first admit I'm not someone, and I did not hold a gun to Darren's head. I think he talked to a few of the alumni, and just so when he joined, the stock market crashed.
It sure did.
And that November last year. So just to clarify for all the listeners, Darren learned the beginner strategy where we just focus on blue chip stocks, right? The intermediate and our right now the said and done strategy. We're focused more on index, which is S&P 500. And our team has been working on it, testing, finalizing for all our mastermind students. We have a great success and more certainty. There's no guarantee, more certainty, less volatility in our cash flow. It has been working really well throughout the last 9 months. So maybe it's time for Darren to review that. And sorry for Darren, at that time, we didn't develop that strategy. Now we're more said and done. So that's that. But of course, we're going to get into more of like the pros and cons of stocks and then real estate, how they kind of not in sync and how they kind of have different pros and cons, right? We can definitely get into that if we want to get there.
I want to ask a quick question really quick. Do you both invest in both the US and Canadian stocks, or is it just primarily Canadian stocks? Just curious.
I only invest in US stocks or in the US, stock exchange. But I like Cody, when I took his program, he's right. Like the market crashed, but I didn't panic at all, right?
Yeah, that's like, credit on me. Can you give me some credit on that?
No, it was good.
I prefer them a lot.
Advice, and it's advice I've heard over and over again, but it was good advice. Like just get into big companies that you believe are going to weather the storm. So I'm like Apple, Disney, Starbucks, JP Morgan, like those were the stocks that I chose. And I'm like, well, I'm not worried about them coming back. Like, of course, they took 30 or 40% drop, but I'm not in it for a quick. Same with real estate investing. If I panicked every time my real estate portfolio went down 20% and sold everything, which is what most people do, right? They get hyped up when the markets are going up and they buy into the hype, and then they freak out when it drops and they sell at the bottom. It's the polar opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. It's like buy high and sell low. Sounds like a great strategy for losing all your money, right? So I think that the stock portfolio is no different. It's starting to come back, but I'm like, even now, I'm like, I'm not panicked about it. It'll come back and it'll far exceed what I paid for those stocks. So there's all different kinds of strategies, and I'm interested in learning more about that. But I think that's just have to, it goes for anything that you're doing.
So we talk about a little bit of a stock option, a little bit of real estate investing, a little bit about your courses, and sounds like the mastermind, is that for the Synergy Mastermind that we're talking about? Yeah, Synergy exactly. Mastermind. For people who doesn't know, Darren and two other partners, Steve and Randy, they run a spectacular mastermind. I was part of it. Their 2.0 version. Their 3.0 is just going to be more people, more great people, branch outside of Canada into US. They have 3 events every year. Again, we'll let Darren talk about that. I'm not a good pitcher for that, but it's just great. And if you guys want to look into it, definitely reach out to Darren and just help out a lot of new, intermediate, or even more advanced investor scale up. Okay. So out of all these right now, if you're willing to share, how would you how do you balance all this? Because as an entrepreneur, money comes and go from all directions. So how do you kind of allocate in terms of like your cash flow coming in from each of these sectors? How do you kind of break it down?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's what I looked at about 18 months ago, as I kind of like created all of these different buckets and said, where is the majority of my day-to-day cash coming from? Or where do I perceive that it can come from? And then what time am I allocating to that business, right? And so that was a real rude awakening for me, because I realized that I was putting in like 40 or 50% of my time into things that weren't generating any cash, right? They can be generating net worth again, but that's something that you can't buy groceries with, is net worth. So, for me, I was like, okay, I need to shift my focus and start to focus more so on those ones that are generating cash. So I really leaned on development, right? Real estate development, because real estate development for us means that we syndicate deals, we bring in investors, but we charge acquisition fees and management fees, right? Those are fixed. Those come in on a monthly basis. So that's guaranteed cash. The other one that I focused on was, the coaching and the education. So I think for me right now, I would say that about 40% of my time goes to my development company and what I'm doing there. The other 40% goes to my education and my coaching. And then the last 20% is split between the mastermind and some of the other things that I do that are a little bit smaller, right? So I think that's where I really laser focused in on those two things. And that allowed me to start to build, day-to-day cash that I could, really start to live off of. And that was a big shift for me. And it's been a huge difference.
I think that's a really great wake-up call. And I think a lot of high income earners, most of them only have one source of income, right? They're, doctors, lawyers, accountant, all that. They have someone else manage their money, but it's really a really good time to really sit down and look at where your money's coming from. How much time are you putting in? Is that the highest and best use of your time to generate those income? Is that the lifestyle, right? The lifestyle could be a part of that too. And a lot of people don't think about it.
Yeah, I'm going to steal something from my business coach, because he taught me this. It's really important that you understand it. He's like, you divide up your time, right? Into like, he calls it brown time, light green time, dark green time. And gold time. You know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
So, we looked at my day-to-day operations, and I was like, I'm just like heavy in brown time. Like all these
that murky tasks. Brown.
Oh my gosh, like so many little things, right? Like things that I do not need to be doing. And I should be, so light green time is like things that start to generate money. Dark green is like those big ticket items that are going to really make you money. And gold time is basically like the time that you want to spend doing the things that you really truly love, spending time with your significant other, or, working out, or racing cars, or whatever you do, right? So that's gold time, right? So for me, I was doing so much like brown time tasks that I was like, I gotta get out of here. And that meant hiring somebody for me to take care of that stuff, right? Which is a hard thing to do too, because I'm like, well, where's that money coming from? But the theory is, and this theory has been proven, is that you bring somebody in to take care of those tasks so that you can then focus on things where you're best as an entrepreneur, generating more income. So it's a hard pill to swallow. Like, okay, I'm going to sink some money into a salaried person. And for me, this has also been a bit of a learning lesson. I tried to go cheap in the beginning, right? I'm like, oh, I'm going to hire a VA. I'm going to do all this kind of stuff. It was such a waste of time. And what I realized was you get what you pay for. Now, not to say that all VAs are crap. That's not what I'm saying, because there are some amazing people out there. But what I found was when I needed somebody sitting next to me on 3 out of 5 days of the week, because most of what I do is interactive, and I need somebody to, like, if they need to go and pick something up for me, I need somebody that's here. So, and then I realized, okay, what's the salary expectation of a person that's really qualified? That was a bit of a rude awakening too. But I tell you what, once I was just committed to that, it was a game changer for me, because they took care of all the little things. And now I can focus on those light green, dark green, and gold things that are really important to me.
Yeah, I remember like Darren asked me for a VA company as I was using. And truth to be told, I tried many VAs. There's only one that still stick around with me, and she's a beast.
Mm-hmm.
But she's the only one that's a beast, right? A lot of people say things, but they can't really deliver. So do you have one assistant now? I know you have business partner and all that, but do you, like, full-time staff, do you have one assistant now, just kind of, helping out with everything?
Yeah, so I have two.
We have two now. Okay.
I have like one executive assistant. So, and this was something too that was important. I have one executive assistant who handles and helps me with my education and all that kind of stuff in that platform. And then I have a operations manager who helps me on the development side. And just becoming super clear on what their roles and responsibilities are. They work together, like it's of course they have to, because it's all kind of centered around business and what I'm doing. But, Brittany is just laser focused on the development side of things. And that's really her skill set. Priscilla is, my executive assistant and handles pretty much all of the inbox and is the gatekeeper for everyone. So those were two really important hires for me, and they've just allowed me to step away and do some different things.
Talk about a little bit about, because you talked about how it was difficult for you to transition and hand off some of these different tasks, because a lot of it has to do with trust too and control, right? We want to control everything that we're doing in our lives, especially if we're so used to doing it on our own. So when we transition that off and have to put our trust into somebody else, that's a little bit hard to do. So how did that work for you, and how did you get past that?
That was a big struggle for me, because I'm A-type personality. I
think we all are.
Yeah, exactly. I've been running my business for many years, and I've never had anyone else to rely on. So the first thing that I had to do was lower my expectations. So that was and you don't, now how far you want to lower them is up to you. But for me, I was like, okay, is it really catastrophic if this doesn't get done this way, or if this is done a certain way that's maybe not the way that I would do it? Usually the answer to that question is no. If it's something where it's costing you dollars, I think that's a bit of a different scenario. But if it's just not necessarily the way that you would do it, and it gets done eventually, and it might not even get done in the same timeline, those are things that I really had to focus on and be like, okay, is it worth the time and energy for me to go back in and check all these things? No, that's what that person is there to do. And as long as the task is getting completed, and that's really the main focus. But it's a bit of a struggle for people that are relatively new to it, because it does take some getting used to. And there's going to be some growing pains. There are things that are going to get missed. There are things that are going to fall through the cracks, and things are going to get done. And you're going to, it's going to send out an email, and you're going to look at it and you go, oh my God, I would not have sent that. But whatever, it's fine, right? You just have to keep it all in perspective. And then there's also the productivity thing, productivity, when you bring somebody else in, goes down, right? So you have to be prepared for that.
Especially in the beginning, it's a learning curve. It's a huge learning curve.
3 to 6 months.
You're just trying to get that person up to speed. So your productivity goes down because you can't do anything else but train this person. So you have to expect that. But once you get through that, then you start to see a real, that exponential growth in your business, because that person can just take on so much more and allows you to do so many other things. So it's short-term pain for long-term gain for sure.
And where have you been having success for hiring? Are you using Indeed and all that, or just word of mouth from friends, referral, or where have you been your success for that?
Well, this was part of my problem. I was too busy to hire somebody. And so I put out ads and then I wouldn't respond to them. And then I was like, so what I actually realized was I needed to hire somebody for me. And that was also too, like, I'm going to pay this person like 10% of this person's salary just to hire somebody. But I'm telling you what, that was the best money I ever spent, because this person was a specialist in hiring people, and they went through all the resumes. They looked at everybody. They did the preliminary interviews. They knew exactly the kind of person that I was looking for. I dedicated about an hour sitting down with Jenna and going through what I was really looking for. We went through the job description, and then Jenna in the end, brought me two candidates. And one, she at the last minute kind of said, I don't think that this person is actually a great fit. So she literally put one person in front of me, and she was like, but at the same time, this person is the best person I've seen for this role in the many years that I've been doing job interviews and things like that. So she was super confident, and it ended up being the person that I hired. And she was absolutely right. She's a boss. She's kicking ass and killing it. So I would recommend that. Hire somebody. If you don't have the time, hire somebody to hire somebody, and just spend that time and energy elsewhere as well.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I went through that. I kind of categorize people with A, B, C players. I only want to hire the A and B players, because over the years, I learned that if I hire a C player, that they will never become a B player. It's actually dragging down the morale of the team. It's sucking up more energy from the entire team, including myself. And we're paying them money too. And the difference between a C player and A player might not be that much. So instead of hiring a C player, just spend more, but hire the right person, an A or B player, then it'll take on a lot faster, and they can deliver a lot faster as well, right? And that's really the takeaway for a lot of these. And I know we're focusing on high income earners, FIRE. Like, Cody, why are we guys talking about these hiring? I'm sure a lot of these audience of ours will be hiring at some point. Well, there will be a small handful that was like, Cody, we just want to invest with whatever you kind of are investing in. We want to follow you, but there's people who just want to do it themselves, and this is for them, right? And that's
go for it. Well, one of the things is, when you hire and bring people onto your team, you're able to step up one level, and instead of working in the business, now you're able to look on the business and really get a more clear overview of what's missing now, instead of you just focusing on the nitty gritty, and you're not able to see the bigger picture. So now when you bring somebody on to do those murky brown tasks, now you're able to see, well, where is the best time my energy is spent on? Where is the best use of my time that I can focus on now? And it clears your mind a little bit more, so that you're able to focus on these different things, see it more clearly, and then really hone in and then grow much bigger and faster.
Well, not only that too, I think, like, for me, I want to spend my winters away, and I want to travel, and I want to do all those things. So, but a good portion of my business is still in Toronto. So I think that's another thing too. If people want to have location freedom, which many people want to have, financial freedom is great. Time freedom is even better. And location freedom is definitely up there for me as well. So when you're trying to sort that out, there's certain things that need to be taken care of where you live. Having staff or having an assistant or something like that is money well spent, because it frees you up to travel and to live in another location, which, like I say, for me, last winter was the first year I did it, and I'll never spend another winter in Canada again because it was amazing, right? So that's the plan moving forward.
So Darren, you're doing all these things to elevate yourself, elevate your life, build up more cash flow for yourself. So in the end, though, what does financial independence and retirement look like for you?
It's funny. I don't think it looks that different from what I have right now. I still enjoy everything that I do on a regular basis, but I think it would just be having a little bit more breathing time in my day, and being able to push off some of those other things that to someone else that I wouldn't necessarily want to have to deal with. So I think it's a gradual step up, but I think that I'm pretty much retired in a way. For me, the definition of retirement is when your passive income supports the lifestyle you want to live. And for me, I'm there. But I think that there's still a little bit of ways to go for me in terms of what the ideal lifestyle that I envision for myself. But I'm getting closer. And for me, that would just be traveling a little bit more with a little bit less responsibility on a day-to-day basis.
So that's your ideal lifestyle. You want to travel a bit more, worry about a bit less.
Yeah, but you know what? I also realized I took my nephew on a 2-week trip to Europe. We
I
just
saw
got
that.
back. Yeah,
That was
it was
very
a lot
cute.
of fun. Yeah, it was fun for him. He'd never been to a lot of the places that we went to, but I realized, and I learned this from Tim Ferriss, I don't like to binge travel. It's kind of annoying picking up and staying in 4 or 5-star hotels every couple days and moving around. And it sounds glorious. And people I think when they envision oh, I want financial freedom, I want to be able to travel, and they do it. And they're like, ugh, this is not fun, actually. I think what I really like is when I was in Amsterdam, I was like, I could live here for 3 months, right? 4 months, something like that. That's what I mean when I say I want to travel, because I want to just go plant somewhere and really get a feel for the area and how people live, and go to coffee shops and spend time on my laptop and not feel guilty about it because I'm working a little bit. That's the lifestyle freedom that I want. I don't just want to I want to go to Thailand for 3 weeks and travel to 5 different spots. That's not interesting to me at all. I want to go someplace and spend months there.
Yeah, I think Darren's a little bit past those backpacking and then traveling around phase. Nothing referred to the age or anything. It just, once you once you get to a certain level, you just want a lifestyle a bit different. And it's great to plant somewhere, maybe just for at least 1 month, right? Instead of hopping all over the place. And
I totally resonate with what Darren is saying, because especially with the 2 little kids myself, I'm like, every time I think about packing all their stuff and every couple of days we have to move somewhere, I'm like, that's not for me.
No, it sounds awful. Yeah.
No. Yeah. So what are you fired about right now, Darren? What's so passionate about? I know you've been doing all this. What are you so passionate about right now?
That's a great question. And I think that changes for a lot of entrepreneurs. But for me right now, it's just all around my education platform. I'm really excited about this concept that I've created. And I know it's kind of out there a little bit, but I kind of realized in my years of investing and coaching and teaching that there's really only 4 real estate personas, if you will. And I think so much real estate education is based just kind of to the masses, or it's so niched down to one topic, right? So I'm going to teach you how to buy apartment buildings with no money down. That is one real estate investing strategy. And I think that works for some people, but it's not going to work for everybody. But at the same time, I don't think that an education program that covers every topic is very valuable either, because people, I've learned, either have time, they have money, or they have both if they're really lucky. But some people also have no competence, right? So those are kind of those 4 personas. I've got time, but I don't have money, right? I've got money, but I don't have time. I've got time and money, right? And then I've got all the knowledge in the world, but I have no confidence to pull the trigger. So for me, I'm creating a education around those 4 personas and the strategies that I would teach people to use if those are their situations. And so that's what I'm really passionate about these days, and just evolving that and growing that.
No, because what I was saying was especially in today's environment and the way that people are consuming education and looking at building up their knowledge base, it's not the traditional pathways anymore. Everything is going online. A lot of the stuff that you're able to get and build up your education, the more tangible, technical, specific, niche things that you're talking about too, it's through the online education. It's not the generalized things that you're going to get from school or the traditional pathways. People are looking for other ways to build up their education, and that's going to be through online.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the vision for that masterclass you're creating? I know the 4 pillar, but are you going to focus on a certain investment vehicle in real estate? Is it going to be multifamily? Is it going to be development, or that just haven't been decided yet?
No, it's absolutely been decided. Multifamily investing and development, I can tell you this from being a developer for the last couple of years, it's incredibly time intensive, and it's incredibly capital intensive too.
I know. Tell me about it.
So if you're a high net worth individual, if you're a doctor, a lawyer, whatever, you make $250,000 a year, you want to be a real estate investor, you're getting into development is a terrible idea, right? Because you don't have the time. You're not going to leave your medical practice to go into development unless there's something on the other side of that is significantly better than what you're doing. And I'm telling you right now, as you start off being a developer, it's not. You're better off to stay in your medical profession. So for that situation, I'd be like, no, that's not the strategy you should be focusing on. Unless you're going to partner with somebody, then that's a different thing. That's a joint venture partnership or that's a general partnership. But for somebody that's in that realm, they should be focusing on being a lender, working with developers, giving their money to developers and saying, go take my money and give me a 40 or 50% return on my capital. But I don't need to be involved in that. I don't need to learn this strategy. I need to learn how to vet the deal, but I don't necessarily need to be the one boots on the ground. So for me, that's what it's all about. It's about taking these personas and really giving them the strategies that are going to work well for them, but they can still see significant returns inside of those vehicles. But they have to play within their strengths and they have to play within their skill set.
Mm-hmm. So sounds like this program actually focus on active investor and also passive as well, depending on where they want to be.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I'd like to hear more about it. That's really cool. And really just all come from your years of experience and really just getting to a niche and differentiate yourself from other master class out there. So that's really, really cool. We can talk about this for all day. We're going to get into the fire round because I know we're going to get a lot of good answers out of those. So Aline, do you want to start us off with our first question in the fire round?
Yes. So Darren, if you were to become a billionaire tomorrow, what would your day look like?
Like I said, I think it would be pretty similar to what my day is now with maybe a few less things, but I would definitely get up, go walk the dog first thing in the morning and then get to the gym. That's been my new routine and I'm loving it because I get that workout out and it's done and I can then come home, have breakfast, take care of a couple things. I love to practice yoga whenever I can. So I would try to fit in a practice of some sort during the day. And then some golden time in there as much as possible, right? There's never going to be a day where there's not a little bit of work for me, I think. Now, I try to take some time off, but there's always going to be that sprinkled in there. But then the golden time, just spending time with friends, family, eating good food, drinking good wine. And, that would be a typical day for me if I had $1 billion in the bank.
Yeah, maybe I'll challenge you to think a bit bigger when you get off the podcast. I feel like you could do a bit more with the B. I feel like you will probably do something different.
I'm a pretty simple guy. I don't necessarily need a lot, but yeah.
Yeah. So the next question will be, now that with all the knowledge you have, if we take away everything, somehow, I'm not saying a lawsuit happened. Let's say a lawsuit happened. Take away everything in your corp and your personally, but they say, you know what? This poor Darren, we're going to give you $500,000. You have all your brands, you have all your reputation, you have all your knowledge. What would you do to start over right now with $500,000?
Well, I would get laser focused on being able to raise capital and to be able to bring people towards you. I think that's very, very important as an investor. When my investing changed significantly was when I had started my YouTube channel and because when people start to understand what you do, it's much easier for you to just build whatever it is that you want to do, right? So I would take that $500,000 and I would pump it into, my platforms, my education, the YouTube channels, the Instagram, like all that stuff. I know it sounds like a crazy thing to pump it back into marketing basically, but that's really what allows you. Because once you have that, then I can go to the market and say, I need $2 million for a project I'm doing in Costa Rica, right? And that will flow back to you, no problem. So I think people would say like, oh, go buy a property and do this. And I'm like, not necessarily. You want to build the brand first and expand on it because then you can really ask for whatever you want and people will gravitate towards you.
That's well said. No, this is the first time we hear that answer on our podcast. And I have my own YouTube channel, all that. I kind of took a break a little bit. Now we're coming back and we're ramping up our marketing. And a lot of people actually don't realize that good fame is actually very, very valuable, very, very valuable. Of course, you protect it with your life for it, but a good fame can help you talk to the right person. They treat you seriously. Your brand is there if you need to raise money. If you have a course to offer, your reputation is there as well, right? So it offers in multiple ways, but it's not easy. And if you really want to do it fast, you need to spend a lot of money on it. And how much you spend, all that's a whole different can of worm there, right? So very happy to hear that.
So Darren, if you were to interview anybody in the world that you could choose and you could think about, who would that be?
Well, that's a great question. Who would I want to interview? I think that, somebody who I've always thought, and this has nothing to do with, financial freedom or really anything like that. I mean, this person has significant wealth, but, I think Michael J. Fox's journey from where he started, and, I read his book, and he was fascinating, and just all of the things that he had in his life, and then kind of taken away from him with his illness. Not to say that he can't do things that he doesn't want to do, but it's just like, that's such an interesting story for me. And I think somebody who's gone through true adversity like that has got to have just a different perspective on life. So I'd love to sit down with him. So Michael, if you're listening here, I'd love to interview you. And he's Canadian. So,
Michael's an actor as well, right? Canadian, American actor.
Yeah.
Kind of went through some Parkinson my grandparents went through that. Yeah, it's not easy. Okay, yeah, if Michael's listening to this, reach out to us first. We'll get you on, and we'll give you to Darren. So I know, Darren, you're doing a lot of great things, masterminds, free YouTube stuff, all these stuff. But what are other ways that you're giving back, or you're envisioning that you're going to be giving back?
That's a great question too. And I think that's something that I've really been focusing on over the last couple of years. I think the YouTube channel it's all it is. It's a give back. I think people, when they have, the kinds of followings that some people do, like Graham Stephan's got 2.5 million subscribers.
I think he's at 4 now.
Is it? Okay. I like that. So that's a pretty cool job for him. For me, I'm like, I don't have that kind of following. So everything I put into that channel is just because I'm trying to help people, and I'm trying to help people for free. I spend money to keep that channel going every single month. So for me, that's one way. But I think I would like to expand on that. I'd like to, and I'm in the process of creating this, I would love to be able to create an education program that goes into the schools and starts to teach these kinds of things at a much younger age. And I don't know why this is so difficult. Everybody that I talk to is like, oh, why didn't I learn this stuff in school? Or why didn't I learn it when I was younger? And I don't know why the education system hasn't come around to this, but there's got to be a solution. There's got to be a way to volunteer my time, or, people's time, to get in front of children and to teach them the basic of financial, independence and financial freedom, because it's not being taught unless you have a mentor, unless somebody in your life is really successful. You'll never learn this stuff in school. And honestly, like, I didn't go to university, but, most people that come out of university don't necessarily know it either. So it's not that because you have a university education, you really know how to run your financial life. So for me, the next part of my education program, I'll be giving back and trying to get people at a younger age with the correct mindset.
Yeah. Imagine how much of a difference that would make, because I have a totally different mindset when I was in school. And before I start making my own money and start my own business, all is a different stage, right? But I just so admire, like, I met this one person at the bank, working as a teller at the bank, 18 years old, took a gap year just to work at the bank. The smartest guy talked to me about stocks, about options, about saving up for money for real estate. I mean, where did this guy come from? Like, but he took a gap year off and, work at a bank for half a year and then travel for another half a year. But compared to someone who just went through the school system without thinking, it's totally different. They know what they want when they go into that, right? And it's so great that you're doing that. And I'm just so happy to hear that. So how can people learn more about you? Is it just YouTube channel, or do you have, like, where do you want people to follow you and reach out to you at?
Yeah, the YouTube channel is a great place to really get some free education on real estate investing. And so if people want to check it out, I'm always grateful if people subscribe and like and share and do all the things that we do on YouTube. My website, it's being redesigned right now. I'm so excited for the launch of my new website. But that'll be my existing website. You can go there and check out my current information, but just be ready for a total revamp in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So I'm super excited. So DarrenVoros.com is my website, and that's the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Yeah.
Awesome. They'll love it, Darren. Appreciate you coming on. And this was fantastic.
Well, thank you guys for having me. It's it's nice to connect again. And Cody, it's nice to finally, have you interview me. And I feel like I've asked you so many questions over the last couple of months. It's nice to be on the other side of it.
Well, I asked you before we even start the podcast, but Darren thinks he's a little bit better than our podcast of 0 episodes. So we have to have multiple people asking him, and now he's finally on. So
I'll come on anytime, and you guys are always welcome to come and my platforms as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, Darren. It's a pleasure.
Nice to see you guys, and nice to chat. Thanks again for having me.
All the links mentioned in this episode are included in the show notes. And if you love this episode, please leave us a rating and review on Apple iTunes. The link is also included in the show notes. And we would really appreciate your help in spreading the word to more high income earners on how they too can maximize both their time and money.
Also, if you still haven't joined our High Income Earners Facebook group, you are missing out on High Income Earners community where we help each other reach our own version of FIRE.